Hi, I'm Teresa Greco, the host of The Happy Hour, where on the show we talk about the things that can help us to live our happiest lives physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Today on the show, I have my beautiful, beautiful friend, Kasha Bradford. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, Kasha, why don't you share a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. So, as Teresa said, my name is Kasha Bradford. I am a transformational leadership coach, mostly for women. I have a few good men that I work with, but that's not where I started. I come from a 25-year corporate career that ended just about 3 years ago. And even though I've been coaching for over 15 years, I never took it on full time. But the last 3 years, that's what I've shifted into. And really, I came into this work close to 2 decades ago when I was navigating not such a great divorce. I had a new toddler and I hired my first coach who helped me really transition through that big shift in my life. And also at that point, I was starting to climb in corporate, again, single mom, raising a toddler. So there was just a lot going on. And not to mention, like, I'm an immigrant child, or I was an immigrant child, now an adult. But my life has been a series of massive changes. And there was a lot of great that came from that. Of course, a lot of resilience and adaptability and all of that stuff. But there is also a lot of me that I lost in the process too. And so the last 20 years really has been a reclamation of who I am, coming back to my authentic self, really finding out who am I. And in that work, supporting the women that I work with as well. So today I work with mostly high achieving women whose life look like they're perfect on the outside. Everything looks amazing to the outside world, but they are in this question of, I have all these things and who am I really? Like, is there all there is? So that's a little bit about me.
Wow. And that's exactly my own personal story. So
Mm,
much of what you just shared in your intro is also so much about me and also the people that I support too in my work as a coach. Those of us that have achieved the quote unquote perfect life, checklist after checklist of all the things that we think are going to make us happy, right? Because this is one of the reasons why I do the show, in that we believe that our happiness is going to be found in our possessions, positions, titles, degrees, relationships, experiences, and appearance. Those are all the areas that we attribute our happiness to, where we say things like, I won't be happy until I lose those 10 pounds. I won't be
yes.
happy until I find that perfect person, before I go on that vacation, before I get that position at work, I finish my degree. That it's always somewhere outside of ourselves and we just need to find, buy, earn, or achieve it. And
Mm-hmm.
that science, however, has really debunked all of those different areas that we now know that, even though society, culture, religion, all of these different entities outside seem to propagate this message that this is what you need to have this happy life. And
Yeah.
then yet we work towards all of that. We spend a good part of our life achieving all of those different things, checking off all of those different boxes, and then yet are left feeling unfulfilled and unhappy. And
Mm-hmm.
that for me, it was the milestone of turning 40 that had me taking that step back and reevaluating my life and saying, wow, well, if I have all the things, why is it that I still feel unhappy and unfulfilled? It didn't matter how much more education I got, how much more I tried to help people. I always felt unhappy. And so if we think about the people that you serve,
Mm-hmm.
are they in that same type of boat where they have been sucked into the misconceptions of where we believe happiness is found, and then are now left feeling unhappy and unfulfilled? Or is there more to it?
So that is definitely a thing, for sure, what you said, and there is a lot more. And I'm finding, um, with in the last 2 years specifically, the women who are the most dissatisfied is the ones that really are going after all the things. And I was there too. I was just like, oh my gosh, like it's always so funny, like you said, like who we attract and who we help. But it's the ones who have bought into this idea that they have to do it all, they have to do it perfect, that they don't need help. And they're doing it so perfectly that nobody even offers help because they look like they have it
Mhm.
handled, but they're so freaking exhausted
Yes.
because I think probably the feminist movement didn't help,
Yeah.
boss babe, go get it, da da da. And so
Yeah.
these women are just burning out in this
Yes.
masculine drive and never having this switch. So career might be thriving, but relationships are definitely suffering, health
Mhm.
is suffering, connection suffering, happiness is suffering. So
Mhm.
definitely.
Yes, yes. Yeah, lots of good reasons there.
Mhm.
And so when they come to you let's talk about the burnout,
Mhm.
because I know that in this age of busyness, which I was talking about on another episode, where we fill all of our time with more things, and that we somehow wear busyness as a badge of honor, right?
Mhm.
Where,
Mhm.
what my guest was saying is almost like two busy people going, well, if you think that's busy, look what I have. And oh yeah, but I forgot to tell you, I also have this. And that we
Yes.
think that filling all of our time, and that I said the irony of it all is that we have created machines
Mm.
and technologies that are supposed to free up our time to give us more time to do the things that we enjoy. But all those machines have ever done is given us more time to fit in more work and more responsibilities, right? That, when all of the big appliances came out, right? The
Mhm.
dishwasher and the washing machine and a lot of the tools that we use, in our homes.
Yes.
And now AI is like, oh my goodness, now instead of me, taking all day to write this, it takes me like 30 seconds to write this,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
I can get through that much more in a day, because we keep creating technologies not to give us free time,
Yes.
but to almost pump ourselves with way more work. And
Yeah.
so if we go back to like this situation, especially I think, women that seem to handle responsibilities in so many different domains,
Mhm.
including the home, we tend
Mhm.
to have a lot of the responsibility in the home, not only in the workplace.
Yes.
Um, what would you say to any of that?
Well, it's definitely. I think this is where the inner work comes in, because there is a reason why we're doing that. That even when we find ourselves with something that helps us save time, we will still fill that time with something else. So that's kind of like what I look at, because again, that used to be me. I remember being
Mhm.
9 months pregnant and washing walls because I couldn't sit still. Like I was still in that place that's almost 20 years ago, but I could not be with myself.
Mhm.
I didn't know who I was, but there was so much discomfort in that. So I was always filling time, but it was
Mhm.
very unconscious at that time. It was very
Mhm.
unconscious. And I find that most of my clients, they're in that same perpetual
Mhm.
cycle where it is work for them to just sit down and like not do anything for 5 minutes. That's
Mhm.
difficult. So I think that a lot of it is, I mean, we've been hearing a lot about nervous system work the last couple of years too. And I think it's become so trendy that it's not that I don't think we ever talked about it. We've just kind of made the language more trendy. So now people
Mhm.
can maybe grab our attention, because I think the other thing that's happening, there is this information overload. And if we don't trendify the language in some way, then like people are deaf to so much.
Mhm.
But it's like, how do we start building capacity within ourselves to just be like, it's okay for me to just chill for 5 minutes and not do anything.
Mhm.
But in the beginning, that's hard.
Yeah, but what happens oftentimes, if you have those 5 minutes to chill,
Mhm.
people are on their phones. Like, it's amazing for me when I sit in my car and I watch people on the streets walking, on the sidewalk, especially in like downtown Toronto where it's extremely busy.
Mhm.
People are all walking on the streets with their phones. And that as an educator, I walk through schools, and those 5 minutes that we would have had in the grocery store line, at the
Mhm.
bank, in those times when you just had to sit and chill for
Mhm.
5 minutes or more,
Mhm.
and to just be with your thoughts and be with yourself isn't happening anymore, because now we all have like a device that is almost like a third arm, that
Mhm.
if we did have that moment just to breathe, we don't take it. We're even on there watching other people do life.
Yeah. Well, it's become a pacifier, right? It's an adult
Mhm.
pacifier. And again, I think to me, based on what I'm seeing,
Mm.
it's because there is a discomfort in connection. There is a discomfort in like the doing nothing. Because again, over the last decade, it's like you can do more, you can do more, you can do more. Even in
Mhm.
corporate, who gets more? It's the people who perform well. Oh, you perform
Mhm.
well. Okay, well, here's more. It's not the
Mhm.
person who's sitting there just
Yes,
doing nothing,
yes.
right? So it's like there is this constant programming of it that I think it's societal.
Mhm.
And again, if we have any sort of like anxious energy, discomfort with ourselves, we don't easily connect with people. It's uncomfortable for I do this all the time. Like I pay attention in grocery lines often, because I
Yes,
stand there
yes.
and like I do not pull out my phone. But you're
Yeah,
right. Everybody in line is on their phone. And so
yes.
really like it's I think we're avoiding each other a little bit.
Yeah.
It's an avoidance thing.
Yeah, I love that when you said that there's like a connection issue.
Mhm.
Absolutely. That after the pandemic, when we spent much of our time behind screens,
Mhm.
children, so we are seeing the effects of that in our schools when children are missing particular skills that they would have developed in those particular years of their life when they were younger, are now in the older grades in like elementary school, and now aren't capable of particular skills that they should be, but
Mhm.
are extremely delayed. And that I find that I want to be able to engage with people by saying, hey, can I give you a call? Can I
Yeah.
call you?
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm just going to text you an email. Like that's all. And it's like, I know, but for me, I can't communicate the energy of
Yeah.
who I am
Yes.
through a text or email. And I have experienced where I have communicated something in a heart-centered way, and it was taken completely opposite, where
Yeah.
instead the response was very aggressive, and I'm like, oh my god, like what happened? And then my daughter says, well, mom, you didn't put enough emojis. Like, and there, and therefore they didn't know, the intent of your words. And I'm like, no, I just, because I grew up in a time where we spent hours on a phone. I don't know about you, but to say we
Yes.
had the one family phone on an
Yes.
extremely long cord,
Cord.
right?
Yeah.
and, and if you spend hours talking to your friend, if your family didn't interrupt you, right?
Yes.
But now it's like you can't get people on a phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, nobody picks up the phone. Like we've become so distrustful, right? And I
Yes.
guess, in some degree with good reason, because there is like every
Yes.
corner, like there is lots of scams and people
Yeah.
have been victimized and stuff like that. But also, like you said, the pandemic, I think, is made people be afraid of people.
Mhm.
So we're not connecting, and there is this like loneliness epidemic. It's very interesting because you said you have experience with kids. My son is 19, and last winter I was listening to a reel on Instagram, and it was a friend of mine. She was talking about how we have a loneliness epidemic, and he was sitting. I
Mhm.
I wasn't close to him, but he just kind of like rolled his eyes, and I was like, what had you roll your eyes about that? And he's like, don't tell me you didn't know this. And I said, I did, but I didn't actually think that you would be present to that because of
Mhm.
his age. And he's like, yeah, he said, well, my group has been affected the most. Like they were in lockdowns when he was in grade 9. And
Mhm.
a lot of kids, young adults now, like have really lost the social skills.
Yes.
And so that was really eye-opening to me to hear from his perspective that, like, no, this is very real. Like, this, it's like my friend was stating the obvious in her reel,
Yes.
so it is a very different dynamic. And even to your point of phones too, I was surprised that about a year ago my son came to me, he's like, put a lock on my phone.
Mm.
He's like, lock it,
Mhm.
tell me what it is. He's like, I don't want more than an hour a day.
Yes.
And I was like, for him to have the awareness,
Yes, absolutely. That's what I was thinking.
because like he's in university and he's studying and he's like, this is really interfering with my life.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely. So what are some of the other things that you think, if you had to think about, the kind of overarching themes around some of the areas that are contributing to our unhappiness? If you think, with your clients, so like busyness, you mentioned overworking and burnout. Are there any other like really big themes you think that are stopping people?
Self-abandonment for women, for sure.
Hmm.
um, because we're just so available for everybody that we often say yes when we want to say no. We're very much disconnected from what it is that we want. Like, what would I love my day to look like? We're not starting our days in that way.
Hmm.
um, and I think what's really getting in the way of happiness for a lot of my clients is, by the time they come to me, they've done 15 years of therapy, they've read all the books, they've listened to all the podcasts. Information is not the problem. It's
Hmm.
open integration that's missing. Like, they want transformation, they want integration, but they're just collecting information. And
Hmm.
that becomes very overwhelming to the point of like being anxiety producing, which it's exhausting. And I mean, exhaustion to me doesn't equal happiness, not in my world.
Hmm.
So that in itself is like that information
Hmm.
overload, and the fact that it's coming from every angle, and especially like this time of year. Like
Yeah.
everybody is telling you lose 10 pounds, like you said, because as women too,
Yeah.
face yoga, you lose 10 pounds, right?
Yeah.
Like, do all
Yeah.
these things. It's like, oh my God, like enough, like what
Yeah.
do I really want?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
it's overwhelming.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And so can we dive into that
Yeah.
just a little bit more
Yeah.
around, what to say? I think that's the truth, that it's almost like as you get older, you know what to do, but there
Hmm.
seems to be a disconnect between, you know, doing it. And so I
Yeah.
just actually wrote an editorial for one of the magazines that I write for, about what happens to us in February, because it's going to be published in February, and that at that time many of the New Year's resolutions that we've set up for ourselves, that we've now fallen off the bandwagon.
Hmm.
And in the past, for me, I have shit on myself when that happens. So, Teresa, you have no will. It always goes that, Teresa, you have no willpower.
Mm,
Why can't you be strong? Why
mhm,
can't you stick to your commitments? Why are you so weak? So I
mhm,
get into a lot of self-criticism. I
mhm,
become, again, my worst critic instead of my greatest cheerleader. Um, and I start to go into all of that shaming and all of that. And
mm,
so, and because it's been so much a part of the motivation behind me achieving all the things, right?
mhm,
That we're often so hard on ourselves because we need to do it all, as you said.
mhm,
We, there's a lot of pressure put on us too. I think as women, we're brought, more so into the workplace and outside the homes, more pressure to like to be
mhm,
in a lot of these, um, in kind of the patriarchy that we live under, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of different attributes and characteristics ended up being adopted and becoming normalized for women. As you said, the boss bitch, or boss babe maybe, but some people, right? To say I don't really resonate. I resonate more with the boss babe part than I do within the boss bitch, because
Yeah.
that has
Yeah.
characteristics that I don't particularly find all that attractive in anybody, never mind
Mhm,
just
mhm,
for women. And so um, when I think about all that pressure that we put on ourselves to achieve all the things and to be perfect and to do it right, it's a lot. And so um, as you said, at this time of the year, we're inundated with so much information that
mhm.
we know what to do. I feel like I know what to do, but then I start to go into this mode of, Teresa, you're such a loser. How come you can't stick to anything?
Mm. Yeah, that's compassion for that part. Like I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it just breaks my heart because I used to have that self-talk too, like so bad, so bad. And it's been, it probably took me a good decade to unravel it
Mhm.
so that it doesn't really show up for me anymore. But especially when I hear women say, well, why do I keep doing that, or why can't I stick to that? It's, like even when you think about the word why, it's just like, ugh. We just kind of like back up against the wall and like, I did something wrong, I'm being reprimanded again
Mhm.
now by myself. So
Yes.
but it's like, instead of that, what needed to heal, like what needs to be looked at, like the reason why I'm not doing something that I know is good for me just tells me that there is something that I still need to learn, in the not doing of it, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so like this year I'm really working with my clients around identity and standards. And my company is called the Sovereign Legacy Group because I really come to, like, in 2025 was like an unraveling year for me. It was just everything
Mhm.
freaking fell apart in the most beautiful way, because I also realized that there are so many tools in my toolbox. I'm like, what
Mhm.
about going back to basics? What about, instead of buying into this new shiny and the latest trend and the, trendy language and whatever, what about
Mhm.
going back to the things that worked 10 years ago, and
Mhm.
forget freaking sexy. Like, to
Mhm.
me, calm is sexy, peace is sexy, joy is
Yes.
sexy, structure is sexy, boring is freaking sexy. But we're
Yeah.
trying to, like, again, it's like we're being conditioned that it just needs to be all this
Yes.
stuff, and then we beat ourselves up because who can keep up with all of it?
Yeah. Yeah. We can't. It's too much.
Yeah.
It's too much. Yeah. So that totally makes sense. Um, So what do we so part of the editorial that I wrote is
Mhm,
kind of, as you said, even the word why
mhm.
is really going back to the type of goals and resolutions that we have for ourselves, to say, but are these even mine? And
Yeah.
so I feel like you just addressed that by saying, when you look at what's trending, you go on social media and everybody's talking about it, and you're having some FOMO and you think, oh, if I don't do it, I'm going to
Totally.
be left behind, and maybe they know something that I don't, and so you get all caught up in this, like, this whirlwind of what everybody else is doing, instead of just coming back to basics and coming back to ourselves. And
Yes.
so some of the things that I noted in there that can be the reason behind why we fall off is that
Mhm,
that's some of it. Some of the goals we set are ones that are actually more so what we see on the outside than ones that are right for us.
mhm,
Sometimes we even sabotage ourselves, and I'm sure you've seen this with some of your work too. That
mhm,
even though on a cognitive level we say, "Oh, I deserve it. I
mhm.
deserve the best. I deserve the best relationship. I deserve, whatever it is that we're pining for," but then yet there's like a level inside of us that thinks that we're not enough, and
Mm-hmm.
that we're not worthy of some of the goals that we might set.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where some of that deeper work happens, because as you said, when I was just sharing, some of that self-talk that, me too, I've been working on rewriting for like over a decade. But
Mm-hmm.
when you've lived most of your life with a particular narrative that's been going through your head on a repeat, now I'm consciously aware of when it happens, and I have to think about, Teresa, is what you're saying to yourself true? Is it real? All of the different, going through all of the different tools at that point.
Yes.
But we can get caught in some of that, because on a deep level, we don't love ourselves the way that we should.
It's 100%. Like, I think that when we get to the absolute knowing of who we are, and when we can stand, I say naked, because then, like, we
Yeah.
want to pick ourselves apart. But if you can naked,
Yeah.
like emotionally and physically, by yourself, with yourself, and look at yourself and like say, I love you, like I
Mhm.
really freaking love you. When we can get to that point, then everything just becomes so
Mhm.
much more beautiful. And I think that's where that happiness lives. Like, that's where it was
Mhm.
born for me, is when I could finally love and accept myself.
Yes.
And it wasn't about what my hair looked like, or what my makeup looked like, what my clothing looked, what the number on the scale said. I know that when we connected, I told you, like, I was on
Yes.
this scale like
Yes.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just got weighed at the doctor last week, and I'm like, oh God, I don't want to see that. I love myself. I don't need to know the number, but I know that the number can still F with my mind
I
sometimes.
know.
Okay.
Oh, me too. Totally. Totally. It does.
So, um,
Especially after the holidays. It's like it's wreaking a bit of havoc on me.
yeah. But what you were saying with the self-sabotage, so it's funny because I just finished rereading The Big Leap for like and I don't know which 100th time, because I was like, okay, there is something with these upper limits and our nervous system capacity. And because I'm kind of in the place with my clients, is like, we're not adding more, we're building capacity. Like, we need to build capacity.
Mhm.
And yesterday I had a very interesting experience, I was kind of applying what I'm talking about. I was raised with criticism. Like, I come from a communist country, immigrated as a young teenager, hardworking parents, whatever, but their motivation was through criticism. So
Mhm.
criticism doesn't touch me. I have massive capacity for criticism,
Mhm.
be it good or bad. But where it touches me is when people show deep gratitude and appreciation for me. I used to like not be able to freaking handle it. I would go into
Mhm.
like a shaking, crying mess. Like, I couldn't even hold it. And yesterday I got a card in the mail from one of my friends in the UK. I guess, well, I remember that she and I had a conversation on October 21st. I did not realize that she made a decision after that conversation to take something on, that now she sent me a card and she's like, do not open it until January 10th, because this was how long she was doing this program with herself. And it was just deep appreciation and gratitude. And she says, you don't know how much that conversation, like, it literally changed me. You were the answer to a prayer I spoken and I didn't even know. And
Mhm.
and I started crying, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
But I sat down. I was like, I read it. And this is what I meant about, like, earlier when I was talking about taking space. I sat, I have a little bench in my dining room table by the window, and I just cried. And I'm like, I'm just going to feel this, and I'm not going to make any stories about it. And I'm just going to
Mhm.
enjoy I'm just going to let it in. We're just going to let it in.
Mhm.
And it passed, like, I'm sure you've heard, and I think I might have even heard you say that it takes 90 seconds.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's exactly how quickly that integrates. But I needed
Yeah.
to allow space to have it land in my body, so I can
Mhm.
more capacity for these beautiful things to come in.
Mhm.
And so it was just like in real time, and I'm like, holy shit, like that's still there, you know.
Mhm.
But when I
Mhm.
used to be like, oh my god, like why is it that I cry so easily, and why, you know, like that's gone. Now it's like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just be with this, I'm gonna enjoy and take in this beautiful
Mhm.
expression of thanks that I received from my friend, and just let it land so that I
Mhm.
can receive more. Because I used to be afraid of it, because I didn't want to
Mhm.
break down in public and look like a fool. And, you know, I had all the stories, right? So, yeah.
Mhm. It's beautiful. And so I'm going to look at that as like one strategy, right? To
Mhm.
just, to just sit and to just be and to let it integrate.
Yes.
And so what are some other tools or strategies that you might offer some of your clients?
Um, I love, I call it the neutral bridge technique, because sometimes, and again, we read about this a lot, say the affirmations, make the positive statements. Well, we have all heard about the reticular activating system. It's a BS detector. So if I go and I start spewing positive statements at myself, but no part of me believes it in any way, shape, or form, for me in the past, it's been more anxiety producing than have a positive effect. So I like this neutral bridge where I just make a neutral statement. So when it comes to, like, for example, a lot of my clients have a hard time delegating things, and so they don't ask for help because they think that they're the only ones who can do it right, for example.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
so I still encourage them to ask for help, and when it's received, even and when somebody does a task and it's not perfect, just practicing saying thank you for handling it. You know,
Mhm.
like, make it, because that can still be true, like thank you for handling it.
Mhm.
And then just notice what comes up, because we have to work through the stuff that comes up. So if
Mhm.
something, you know, around like, oh my gosh, like they missed a spot here, or you know, like, this is
Yeah.
crooked over there, trust me, I've been that
Yeah.
person. So it's just like, yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, and I can receive their help, and it doesn't have to be perfect,
Mhm.
right? um
Yes.
and there are also tasks that I think um again, I'm just totally using myself as a case study, but I'm very particular about certain things, but other things I'm not that particular about. So I delegate the stuff I'm not particular about,
Mhm.
and then it works, and then I'm not overwhelmed, and I don't have to worry about how this was done or that was done. Um but yeah, like, other things with, you know, to the negative self-talk, like if we catch ourselves in the negative self-talk, or if we catch ourselves in that masculine energy all the time, where we're at home, and instead of being with our kids, we're managing them, we're problem solving, we're controlling. What if I could just be here without needing to fix anything? You know, again, like, just kind of finding a neutral place, because it's sometimes very difficult, like, again, especially if we're in problem solving and controlling all the time. That's an adaptive behavior from usually
Mhm.
childhood, and it's hard
Mhm.
to just like turn it off, you know. And we have to, it's practice. So what would it feel like to just be here without having to fix anything, and just get
Mhm.
curious what it would feel like? You don't have to do anything, but we can start rewiring our brain to, again, like, not be so hyper in overdrive
Mhm.
all the time.
Mhm. It's interesting to think about some of the needs that
Mhm.
are being met through those behaviors, right? So,
Yeah.
as an educator, I have seen groups of young girls where there is one girl that's a little more on the controlling side. And she is the one, the commander, that's
Yeah.
telling everyone else, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, and you're playing with us and you're not playing, and all of that, the one that's kind of running the show, and then the other ones that are all playing along, right? So it's
Mhm. Mhm.
interesting when you go back to who we were as children
Yeah.
and why we may have adopted particular characteristics and attributes because of the environments that we were growing up in, because of the adults in our life and particular characteristics or behaviors that we were around, and why we may have adopted some of those things, that in oftentimes it may have been, for safety and security reasons, right? From
Mhm,
when we
mhm.
think about, from a survival perspective, how we think we may have to behave in order for us to be loved, liked, and accepted by other people. For me, it was more about shrinking,
Mm.
becoming that I'm an Aries, so I have I would say, a pretty big personality, with a lot of energy. And I was always, that little girl that was trying to recruit everybody to, like, hey, let's do this, and let's be loud, and let's
Yeah.
be dancing, and let's be high energy, and and then it was like, no, that's too much, Teresa, you're too much, you're too much, you're too much. Whole bunch of different aspects of myself, I was just too much, too much, too much, or I wasn't enough of different things.
Right.
So that all led to me becoming an adult, I would say, who played small in various ways, because I was told I was too much, and which I now recognize are all very, very beautiful qualities, and that if I didn't have those qualities, I wouldn't be able to do the work that I'm doing today. And
Wow.
that the work that I'm doing today is revealing to me the beauty of those qualities that I had squashed out of, that had been squashed, and that I
Mhm.
also just buried them under, like, a whole bunch of layers, that weren't so positive. And now that I'm taking off those layers, I'm able to rediscover a lot of those traits that I now remember of me as a little girl. And
Mm.
so, um, all of that came back to me when you were just, talking about, what you were sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it's amazing. Like this work is so layered. It's so,
Hmm.
so layered because like even when you're saying about playing small, again, it comes from different places. Like you were told like you were too much, so then you dim yourself.
Hmm.
I remember I actually like just was journaling about it 2 days ago because I'm like, what the hell? Like, what is this with me shrinking too?
Hmm.
And I realized it wasn't even in childhood because I was parentified as a child. So I always, like I said, like
Hmm.
very resourceful, very like I get shit done because I had to.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I had a mother who was have a mother who is very externally looks focused. And when
Mm.
I was a young woman, like in my young woman, not a middle-aged woman, like in my early 20s, we would go somewhere, like my ex-husband and I would go somewhere with my parents, and people would say to my mom, like, they use this, we're Polish, and they use this word that like they just thought I was like stunning or something. And
Mhm.
my mom couldn't handle it
Mm.
because the attention was not on her anymore.
Wow.
And so I was like a lit, and so this I'm 50 this year. So just like look
Mhm.
how long it takes to like realize certain things. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I never put two and two together,
Mhm.
but I never wanted to have to manage her feelings when people appreciate me.
Mhm.
Right. So then I again, like we self-sabotage in those ways because there is like, and
Yeah.
this was all unconscious, but I'm like, yeah,
Yes.
I found it very, very challenging to manage her emotions and try to pacify her not feeling good about herself.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's amazing what
Interesting.
we do. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And that's why I think that working with a coach, right, can try to reveal some of those layers
Yeah.
that we need to peel back to reveal more about the authentic self. And so I would love to leave off on just maybe talking about the authentic self,
Yeah.
that I ironically, I'm delivering my third TEDx talk thank you, in February. And it's about staying authentic in the age of AI and digital technologies.
Mm,
And it cites some latest research around around authenticity and how we can figure out who that is, like who is the authentic Teresa, who
mhm,
is the authentic self for us, that's
mhm,
based on an external checklist. So if we bring this, conversation full circle, this external checklist of, what it would mean to be, let's say our perfect self, but it's not actually a definition of perfect self for us, but one that was dictated by, external forces and people.
yeah,
And so what do you, because you alluded to the authentic self too, and how important that is, and self-love is right there beside it.
yeah.
Um, but so what would you say to that?
Yeah, so I think until we connect to, and like I said, fully accept ourselves, like all parts of us, from as far back as we can remember without judgment, but bring love and compassion and integrate those parts of ourselves that maybe we weren't proud of in the past. Like you said, like we've all had our dark moments.
Mhm.
And understanding, again, when we understand where it came from, we can now do something about it, but we still have to do some integration work. But to me, authenticity, like when I think for, like back in the day, I used to wear masks, and I
Mhm.
was whoever you needed me to be wherever I went.
Mhm.
And people freaking loved me. And
Mhm.
and I would come home and not feel alone. And the conversation I would have was like, well, they don't fucking know me.
Yes.
Guess what? I'm not me when I'm out there.
Yeah.
So it's getting to the congruency where you're the same person here with you, right? It's you when I go to the grocery store and I interact with the cashier, or when I'm getting a coffee, or when I'm with my son or with my friends. It's like that's the authenticity. That's how I think we can gauge, is like, am I the same person in all those settings? Or would people say, oh, well, you don't, like you act like this over here, but you act like this
Mhm.
over here. Well, then we know that there is a mismatch of something, like we're managing something. And really, until we can show up in congruence with who we truly are, we will
Mhm.
never have authentic relationships.
Mhm.
People don't know us, of
Yeah.
who we truly are, the good, bad, and the ugly, and the amazing. um,
Yes.
then we're not connecting, like we're not letting people in. And so, like there is, like, that's probably the most vulnerable work that we do, is letting
Mhm.
other people be seen. And I think it really starts, like I encourage my clients to find one or two safe people that they can start
Mhm.
practicing with, that they know, like they're not going to be judged, they're not going to be abandoned, because again, those are fears, and legitimate ones.
Yes.
And then when we can gain evidence that, what, people actually do love me for who I am, and at the same time we have to practicing loving ourselves for who we are.
Yeah.
And then, it builds slowly, but it's so doable, and I think so necessary, particularly with, like you were saying, AI. Like I don't want to spend my day talking to ChatGPT.
I know.
Like I like it for some things,
No.
don't get me wrong, but
Yes,
it's
I
not
know.
connection.
Yes, I know. That energy
Yeah,
that you don't have it with an inanimate object.
no,
Right? We have that, and that does it, not that there isn't an energy, but it's not the same energy that we have as humans, right? And
no.
so, and we need to have that energy matched like attracts like. And
Yes.
so it's just not the same. It's not the same. I appreciate everything that you just shared, because again, it is exactly my story. And I love about the wearing mask and trying to be the perfect wife and perfect employee and perfect.
Mhm.
And it was always like, who does Teresa need to be now? And then I
Yes.
adopted the characteristics that I thought that that's what that almost like persona, like when I was, as a teacher is like, oh, that's what I need to look like. That's
Yeah.
what she looks like. That's how she acts. That's how she sounds. It's like you have all of the different hats to wear, like in each of these situations, and you know what characteristics goes along with them.
Yeah.
And that it is so exhausting, and that when
Yes.
I through me being at the lowest point of my life, that's where it led me to the
Mhm.
lowest point of my life, and then me rebuilding myself from there. And then I think when we're at the lowest point, we can only go up from there,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that process has been, as you said, me getting to know who that is, that I didn't know who that was. Like,
Yes.
it wasn't like I had an idea to say, well, I could know who that was outside, and now at
Yes.
home I know. Oh, I didn't know who that was now. The real
Yeah.
Teresa, I had no clue, because the
Yes.
real Teresa was me wearing all of those different masks. And now the commitment I made to myself is that I would be that exact person, as you said. Who I am with others is who I am with myself. And it
Yes.
is it is that work. I'm going to say work because feels like work initially, but then
Mhm.
eventually, as the layers start to get peeled back, that vulnerability that
Mhm.
takes so much strength to
Mhm.
have people see you for,
Mhm.
like, all aspects of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you don't love all of those aspects,
Mhm.
there's a lot of fear there, because you're like, we all want, I think, what is it that we all want? Happiness, I believe, is like the foundation piece,
Mhm.
but more deeper than that is, and I once heard Tony Robbins say this too, is that we all want to be loved, and
Mhm.
by others, and to love others too. That
Yes.
that
Yeah.
is the deep desire and the deep
Mhm.
need that we have. And so
Mhm.
I think the fear is, if people see something about us that they won't like,
Mhm.
that they won't love us, and
Yeah.
that we'll just be left destitute, because that desire for connection that you're talking about is real, is so real. And that,
Yeah.
I think, when people aren't having the face-to-face connection, they're
Mhm.
resorting to, like, chat GPT as
Yeah.
the substitute,
Yeah.
but it is only ever a substitute.
It is. It is a substitute. And I actually listened to a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and I just short clip it of it, and he was saying like we're creating like people, narcissistic people with
Yes,
ChatGPT,
yes.
because what does it do? Like I always laugh with my son. I'm like, like I'll correct it, because even when I'm doing research and stuff, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
that's wrong, and they'll be like, you're right.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
do I need
Yeah.
somebody to just constantly validate me? Like, and it's not even a somebody. Like it
I
becomes weird,
know.
right?
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
yes. We have to acknowledge that though learning management system that they're programmed on have
yeah,
that positivity
yeah,
bias, so it
yeah,
will constantly reaffirm, which is, I believe, and I've said the same thing, that it's creating narcissists. But what it's also doing is just creating, like, another version of yourself, because as it trains
yeah,
its memory about everything it knows about you,
yes,
it's actually just creating, like, a digital version of you, which is
yeah.
why I think people have an affinity towards it, because, oh, it understands me. Yeah, because it's actually just always regurgitating more of
The same
yourself
thing.
to
Yeah,
yourself,
yeah,
and so that's why you feel like you're so understood,
yeah.
right? Which is really scary. And there was, I'm the editor of a magazine, and there was an article that, came across by email that said, "Do you want to run a story about a woman who married her AI,
Oh my
and
gosh.
her whole ceremony is online if you want?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to watch someone who married a machine,
Yeah,
which is really a version of herself, because all it's ever doing is just confirming you over and over and over again," which
yeah,
I think ultimately, we could have a generation of narcissists that have been, using it from very young ages.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah. It's
Um,
threatening.
so I don't want to end off on that note, but Kasha, I would love for people to be able to connect with you and know more about, the work that you do. And so how can they do that?
Yeah. So best way to reach me is probably on Instagram at Sovereign Group, the Sovereign Legacy Group, and also on LinkedIn, Kasha Bradford, just my name. So I work with clients in a private capacity only, like I only do one-on-one work, and I've shifted to that because everyone is so individual, and just kind of like what we talked about. With our programming and our individual life story, that's what has us be who we are, and that's what I found, like, over the years, that's where I get the best results. So I don't actually have I do have a website, sovereignlegacy.ca, but my offerings are not there because everything leads to a conversation that if we're a good fit, we will work together. And if I'm not the right fit, I'm happy to always recommend resources. And that's why I love connecting with people like you, because like I have you on my resource list, and like all the people I've interviewed in the past, because I'm also like, I'm not the best mentor for everybody. I'm quite direct.
Right.
I'm quite direct. I really want people to get out of their poop, and move on with life. So we don't spend a lot of time we spend 6 to 12 months, and then we're on our way, because I'm really after, again, that integration and transformation. I'm not interested in any more information, because I don't think we need any more information. It's all over YouTube. So you
Yes.
can always find
Yeah.
that, right? So
Yes.
yeah.
I agree. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing all of your wisdom and your light and energy with us.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It's been such a pleasure. So great to see you again.